What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the corner. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players that you should absolutely avoid in the early half of the draft this year. With the NBA season officially tipping off in a couple of days, and that means a lot of the fantasy leagues are going to be holding their last minute fantasy drafts pretty much today and then tomorrow. Every single year, we see the same thing, players getting drafted way too early just because of their name value or just the hype around them. But this year, we're not going to let that happen to you. In this video, I'm bringing down 5 players that you should absolutely avoid drafting too early if you want to stay competitive throughout the season this year. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that these players are completely off limits, but if they fall in your draft, the value might be there and they could turn into a great stash for your roster later on. But based on their average draft position, these are the names that you'll want to be cautious with, especially in rounds 1 through 5, where your picks are setting the foundation for your entire fantasy season. Now let's get into the video. First up, we have Sabonis, a walking triple-double and easily one of the most dominant players in the entire league. He's one of the most efficient big men and a cornerstone for the Kings offense, but as good as Sabonis is, he's also one of the players I'm the most cautious about drafting early this year. Now, I know that sounds absolutely crazy on paper. Sabonis looks like one of the safest first or second round picks in fantasy. He's been a machine the last 2 seasons, leading the league in rebounds and playing almost every single game. 79 the year before and 82 last year. That kind of durability has earned him the Iron Man label when it comes to fantasy, and rightfully so. But here's the thing, those streaks almost never last forever. Sabonis is already dealing with a hamstring injury heading into the season, and that's already a huge red flag for a player with such a heavy workload. Hamstring issues are really tricky. They don't just go away overnight. They linger, they flare, and they often limit a player's minutes or explosiveness over time, especially over the season for a big man. And when you combine that with how much Sacramento relies on Sabonis, with all the touches, all the screens, and the physicality it takes to play the big man in the NBA, it's the kind of situation that can lead to more wear and tear as the season goes on. Now, this doesn't mean that you should completely avoid Sabonis in drafts if he slips into the middle of the second round. I honestly still think that is great value for him. But if you're drafting him in the top 10 and banking on him to repeating what he did last year, that's going to be a little bit of a risky bet. So while he's still an elite fantasy player, just keep in mind that a slight regression, especially in games and production, could be coming for him this year. And in round 2, we have LeBron James, the GOAT himself. And yes, he's on my do not draft list this year. Now let's be clear, when LeBron is healthy, he's still one of the most dominant players in the NBA. Even in his 20th season last year, he was putting up incredible numbers and still impacting every single game he played in. But as we head into this season, things are different. There are some major red flags when it comes to LeBron that make him a risky pick if you were picking him in the early rounds of your fantasy drafts. First, his age. Age is finally starting to become a huge factor for LeBron. He turns 41 this year, and while he's the 5-time better than any other athlete so far that we've ever seen, no one beats Father Time forever. And with Luka taking over most of the ball handling duties and Austin Reeves emerging as a legitimate secondary player for the Lakers, LeBron's usage rate is almost guaranteed to dip this year. Then there's the injury concern as well. LeBron is currently dealing with a nerve issue that's expected to silence him until at least October 30th, and this is just when he will be reevaluated to see how long he's actually going to be sitting for. But nerve damage is not a quick recovery as well. Even if he's cleared by then, it's the type of injury that is going to linger and affect his mobility, conditioning, and explosiveness all season. That makes it very possible that we don't see the real LeBron until well into the season, around November, December, maybe even January. So yes, he's still going to be LeBron James and he'll have great games when he's active, but taking him in round 2, for me, that's too big of a gamble given the risk of the mistimed and reduced production due to the injuries. If he somehow falls to the 4th round, then that's when I pull the trigger, but anything earlier than that, and you're just drafting nostalgia and not the true value. In round 3, this one was honestly a true toss-up between Cooper Flagg and Franz Wagner, and both come with very different kinds of risk. Let's start with Flagg. Taking a rookie in the 3rd round is always risky, no matter how much upside they may have and no matter who the rookie is. And while Flagg's talent is 100% undeniable, that's still a lot of pressure to live up to right away. And here's the thing, with Kyrie Irving expected to miss a large portion of the season and Anthony Davis being as predictable as he is with his injuries, Flagg could be thrust into a much larger role on day 1. And that kind of opportunity could lead to big fantasy numbers, but it also comes with the growing pains of a rookie learning to carry a team night in and night out. On the other side, you've got Franz Wagner, who's coming off another solid year with Orlando, but now finds himself in a much more crowded situation with Desmond Bane joining the Magic this summer, and Paolo Banchero also continuing to take on more of the offensive load as he starts to develop as well. Wagner's usage rate could dip early on in the season, but the upside to this is that this new lineup should actually help Orlando a lot when it comes to pacing and spacing, and these are the two areas where the offense struggled a lot last season. Bane has been one of the best spot-up shooters in the league over the last 4 years he's been in the NBA, which will force defenses to stay honest and open up driving lanes for Wagner to attack the rim, and that means more efficient scoring opportunities and a chance for Franz to be even better in the long run. My advice is if you are drafting Franz Wagner in round 3, you have to be patient and don't panic and try to trade him before he actually starts to get going. My advice is if you're drafting him in round 3, you have to be patient. He might start slow as he adjusts to Bane's presence, but once he and Paolo find their rhythm, Wagner is going to settle into his role and he's going to be a very high value fantasy contributor for the whole second half of the season. In round 4, the player that we have here is going to be Zubac. And don't get me wrong, last season Zubac was an absolute monster for the Clippers. He averaged about 17 points per game and 12 rebounds per game. He anchored the paint, giving consistent production night in and night out. The talent is there, the motor is there, and his physical presence in the post is not going anywhere at all. But the issue this season isn't about skill or aging, it's just about sustainability. Last year, Zubac played 80 games and averaged around 33 minutes per night. That's an incredible workload for a traditional center, especially in today's NBA where big men are getting more rest, more rotation management, and fewer minutes overall. For context, if you think about it, the average starting center plays only around 68 games per season in the NBA, at roughly 30 minutes per game. So even if Zubac is healthy, the simple regression to the mean suggests that we'll be seeing him in less games played this year, and his minutes have to come down for him to stay on the court. And when that happens, the production naturally follows as well. His per minute numbers might remain strong, but the overall counting stats like the points, boards, and double doubles will likely dip just enough to make a difference in the fantasy standings. I still think Zubac finishes this year as a top tier real life center, but when it comes to fantasy, I just don't see him cracking the top 50 overall to warrant a 4th round draft pick. The combination of expected rest days, reduced minutes, and natural statistical regression makes him a risky pick in the 4th round, especially when other players in that range offer more upside and durability. If he falls into the later rounds, I'm definitely going to take him, but taking Zubac early this year is betting against the odds, and that's rarely ever a winning strategy when it comes to fantasy. And finally, the player that I'd avoid drafting is going to be Joel Embiid, and I understand that the 5th round is going to be a value pick round, but it's just hard for me to justify taking Joel Embiid, and this is why. Now, I want to make this clear that Embiid is a generational talent. Don't get me wrong. When healthy, he's one of the most dominant players in the league, a center who can create his own shot, stretch the floor, and defend at an elite level. And he also likes to facilitate the offense. From a pure skill standpoint, he is unmatched. But in fantasy basketball, availability is everything. And that's where the red flag starts to pile up. Embiid has never played more than 75% of the games in any season throughout his career. Over the past 2 years combined, he has suited up for only 58 out of a possible 164 games. That's less than 36% of his team's total games. He is a nightmare for fantasy managers who need reliability in the early rounds of the draft. Heading into this season, he's already in talks for minutes restrictions and careful workload management to keep him healthy for the long term. This means he's not going to play back-to-backs, so that already caps his number of games to around 68 to 70 games this year. Even if Embiid does get back and plays all of those 50 to 60 games, there's still not enough to justify spending a 5th round pick on him. You're locking yourself up into a player who might dominate when he plays, but could leave you scrambling to fill up holes in your lineup for half the season. At this stage of the draft, you're much better off targeting players with more durability and upside. Guys like Zach LaVine, Kobe White, Denny, or even Jalen Duren. They may not have Embiid's ceiling, but they'll be on the court consistently, and consistency wins fantasy leagues. So as great as Embiid is in real life, in fantasy terms, he's the definition of a high risk, low availability. Let someone else roll the dice on this player and you'll thank me later in the season. So that's going to wrap up today's video and the players that you should be avoiding in this year's NBA fantasy draft. Remember, name value does not win leagues, consistency does. If I missed anyone that you think that should have made it onto the list, please drop their name down in the comments below. I love it when you guys bring up new topics in the comments. Thanks for stopping by the corner today, and as always, see you in the next one.